Elaine's champagne flute was colder than every other glass on the table, and it was sitting where I hadn't put it. On March 14th, condensation slicked the stem beneath my fingers. Ice clicked inside a silver bucket behind the bar, while Natalie's jasmine perfume drifted over the smell of champagne and warm crab cakes. The velvet ring box in my jacket pressed against my ribs when I leaned closer to the etched name. Elaine Keller. My wife had been gone 6 years. That flute had spent every one of them wrapped in tissue inside the cedar box in my bedroom closet. Natalie touched my wrist. "Don't start inspecting things, Dad. Not tonight." At 64, after 37 years behind a pharmacy counter, I still checked a seal before I opened it and a label before I trusted it. My daughter knew that. "You took it from my house," I said. "I borrowed it," Natalie replied. Her voice stayed soft enough for nearby guests to hear concern instead of warning. "Mom should be part of my engagement toast." Colin Reeves lifted the champagne bottle and gave me the patient smile he used whenever he wanted me to feel old. "You can let one thing be sentimental, Ray." A faint, cloudy streak clung beneath Elaine's name. I turned the flute toward the chandelier, but Natalie slid it from my hand. "You'll smudge it," she said. Her fingers tightened around the stem. Then she carried the glass toward the private bar. The Columbus Hotel ballroom was filled with white roses and people from Natalie's clinic. Laughter rose beneath the scrape of forks and the hum of the heating vents. No one watched the grieving widower's keepsake. No one except me. The mirrored column behind the bar bent every reflection. In its curved surface, Natalie placed something small into Colin's open palm. I slipped my recovery coin from my pocket and rolled its worn edge beneath my thumb. My hand stayed steady. Rosa, one of the servers, stepped between me and the bar carrying folded napkins. I followed her, pretending one had fallen near my chair. The carpet swallowed my footsteps. Bottles clinked. Citrus cleaner stung my nose near the service door. Natalie lowered her voice. "Drug Dad's glass," she whispered. "Enough to make him sound like before rehab." Colin's hand stopped above the flute. "If he only needs to go home, why call an ambulance?" "Because home doesn't create hospital documentation," Natalie said. "Do it." A spoon struck china. Someone laughed near the cake. Colin tore open a small packet. I bent, picked up a clean napkin, and walked back to my table. Elaine used to say panic wasted the first useful minute. She'd said it when pipes burst, when Natalie broke her arm at 12, and when I finally admitted what prescription pills had done to me, so I counted what I knew. Natalie wanted me impaired. She wanted emergency records. She wanted witnesses who knew my history. And she had chosen her mother's glass. Rosa returned with a tray. Her eyes settled on the cloudy streak. "Sir, let me replace that one," she said. Natalie appeared beside her. "Please don't touch it. It belonged to my mother." "I only thought there might be residue," Rosa said. "It's etched glass," Natalie replied. "That happens." Colin lifted the flute from the tray and placed it before me. Family history, right where it belongs. His cuff brushed the rim. A bitter medicinal smell hid beneath the champagne, faint enough that I might have blamed the flowers if I hadn't heard them. Natalie tapped a spoon against her glass. Conversation softened. "My father would like to say a few words," she announced. I stood with Elaine's flute in my hand. The cold stem rested against the scar on my index finger, the one I got opening a shipment box during my first year as a pharmacist. Natalie watched my mouth. Colin watched the glass. I raised it. "A marriage doesn't survive because two people keep each other comfortable," I said. "It survives because somebody tells the truth before silence becomes more expensive." Her smile held, but the skin beside her mouth tightened. "To Natalie and Colin," I said. I set the flute down without drinking. Colin leaned toward me. "You forgot the toast." "No," I said. I finished it. Natalie stepped back and pressed her phone screen. "Dad, what did you take before you came here?" she asked loudly. Several conversations stopped. "Nothing." "Your speech is strange," Natalie said. "You're fixating again." Colin put a hand on my shoulder. His grip was firm, meant to make me pull away. "Let's get you somewhere quiet," he said. I removed his hand. Colin stumbled backward as if I had shoved him. Natalie lifted the phone to her ear. "I need an ambulance and police. My father has a history of prescription drug abuse. He may have stolen medication from my clinic." She hadn't checked my pockets. She hadn't checked my car. No one had tested the flute. Still, She already knew what story she wanted written. The hotel manager hurried toward us. I caught his sleeve. "Lock the camera room," I said. "Don't let anyone overwrite the kitchen or bar footage. Keep the servers here until police speak to them." Natalie covered the phone. "Listen to yourself, Dad. I am. You're frightening people. Then they should stay and watch." Sirens cut through the music from the street below. 2 officers entered with paramedics and a woman in a dark jacket who introduced herself as Detective Elaine Ruiz. Natalie met them halfway across the floor. She called me Daddy. That was how I knew she had an audience. "He was fine earlier," Natalie told Detective Ruiz. "Then he started accusing us. My father has been in recovery for years, but lately he's been obsessed with my mother's death." Detective Ruiz looked at me. "Mr. Keller, did you take anything tonight?" "No." Natalie touched the detective's arm. "He won't admit it when he relapses." I placed my recovery coin beside the untouched flute. "Test me," I said. "Seal the glass. Then watch the kitchen camera before you decide who needs protecting." Colin laughed once. "He's building a case out of a toast." Rosa stepped forward. Her serving tray trembled against her apron. "I saw Dr. Keller keep that glass separate," Rosa said. "She stopped me from replacing it." "You misunderstood," Natalie replied. "I asked because there was something in it," Rosa said. The manager led Detective Ruiz to the security room. An officer stayed with us. The champagne bubbles in Elaine's flute gathered along the cloudy streak and burst one by one. Detective Ruiz returned, carrying a tablet. She played the video without comment. Natalie placed a packet in Colin's palm. Colin took Elaine's flute from the tray, turned his back, and emptied the packet inside. Rosa approached. Natalie blocked her. Colin pointed at the screen. "That could have been anything." The detective looked toward the service hall. "Where's the packet?" "I don't know," Colin said. An officer searched the lined trash bin behind the bar and returned with a torn wrapper held in gloved fingers. Natalie's voice hardened. "You cannot arrest a physician because a waiter invented a story." "No," Detective Ruiz said. "But I can act on the video, the witness, the physical evidence, and 2 accounts that don't match." The first cuff closed around Colin's wrist with a dry metallic snap. Natalie stared at him. "Tell them you misunderstood me." Colin said nothing. The second officer reached for my daughter. Natalie looked at me, not the police. "Dad, fix this." For 18 years, I had carried a coin that reminded me what happened when I asked other people to protect my lies. I picked it up. "No," I said. The cuff closed around Natalie's wrist. Later, Detective Ruiz replayed the emergency call while officers photographed the table. Natalie had told the dispatcher I stole medication from her clinic before anyone searched me, tested the drink, or saw a symptom. After Ruiz allowed me to use my phone, I called Miriam Shaw. She had represented Elaine's estate after the funeral and never wasted words when facts would do. She arrived while the ballroom emptied. "What were you supposed to do tomorrow morning?" Miriam asked. I opened the worn estate binder I had locked in my trunk for the appointment. "Meet with a state investigator." "About Natalie?" "About Elaine's hospital chart." I placed the medication summary Elaine had requested on the afternoon she died beside the certified electronic copy the estate received after her death, which I had reviewed 3 weeks earlier. Miriam read both pages twice. Her fingertips stopped on a line in the newer copy. Medication administered. The same line was absent from the paper Elaine had carried home. Miriam turned the pages toward me. "Ray," she said, "someone added this after your wife printed hers." Miriam kept both medication summaries flat beneath her palms while the last hotel employees cleared broken glass from the ballroom. "Don't touch either page again," she said. "Not until I photograph how you brought them to me." The hotel smelled of stale champagne, bleach, and wilted roses. Somewhere beyond the service doors, a vacuum cleaner growled over the carpet where Natalie had stood in handcuffs. My daughter's chair remained pulled back from the table. Her untouched engagement cake leaned slightly to one side. The sugar flowers still perfect. Detective Ruiz placed evidence seals across the bags holding Elaine's flute and the torn packet. "Your daughter and Mr. Reeves will be booked separately," Ruiz said. "That doesn't mean they'll stay in custody." Miriam looked up from the papers. "And the drink? The field test will take time," Ruiz replied. "The full lab will take longer." I traced the air above the added line without touching it. "Medication administered." A clean entry. A quiet lie. "Tomorrow's appointment?" Miriam asked. 9 in the morning. "Keep it," she said. Tell the investigator what happened tonight, but don't hand over original documents without a receipt. By sunrise, a 6-second video had replaced everything the cameras actually showed. The clip began with Colin stepping backward and ended with Natalie being cuffed. It left out the packet, Rose's warning, and the untouched flute. My voice sounded sharp through someone's phone speaker. Natalie's face looked pale and wounded. The caption read, "Doctor arrested while protecting father during relapse." Miriam played it once in her office, then turned the volume off. "Who posted this?" I asked. "A guest sent it to a local account," she said. Now larger pages are copying it. On the silent screen, Natalie mouthed the word "Daddy." My phone buzzed against Miriam's desk. The name belonged to Frank Delaney, the man who had driven me to my first recovery meeting 18 years earlier. I answered. Frank skipped hello. "Did you use?" "No." A chair creaked on his end. "I'm not asking what your daughter said. I'm asking you." "I didn't use." "Then prove it to yourself, before you try proving it to strangers," Frank said. "Go get tested. Today." His directness hurt less than sympathy would have. Miriam took my keys when she saw how hard my hands had closed around the steering wheel, then drove me to an independent clinic. The waiting room lights buzzed above plastic chairs. Disinfectant burned the back of my throat, and the sample cup felt warm and humiliating in my palm. A nurse sealed it while I watched. "You'll have the rapid results shortly," she said. "I want the full panel sent to my attorney too." The nurse nodded. No surprise. No pity. My rapid test came back clean. For several seconds, the printed words sat on the counter between Miriam and me. Negative. A news van that had been waiting outside Miriam's office followed us. By the time the clinic door opened, 2 reporters stood beside the entrance. Miriam noticed them first. They followed the car. A woman raised her phone as soon as the door opened. "Mr. Keller, did your daughter arrange treatment for you?" Another voice followed. "Are you denying a relapse?" Miriam guided me toward her car without touching either reporter. "I took a voluntary test," I said. The result was clean. The first woman called after me. "Then why did Dr. Keller tell police you stole medication?" That question followed us into the car. Detective Ruiz called before Miriam started the engine. "The presumptive result on the flute is positive for a substance that can cause confusion and loss of balance," Ruiz said through the speaker. "That is not the final laboratory confirmation." "Do you know where it came from?" Miriam asked. "Not yet. The wrapper has a lot number, but we need the distributor records." "What are Natalie and Colin saying?" I asked. Ruiz paused. Papers shifted near the phone. "Mr. Reeves says Dr. Keller told him it was a sleep aid and that you had been agitated for weeks. Your daughter says he acted alone because he feared you would stop the wedding." "Both stories make Colin the hand holding the packet," Miriam said. "Yes," Ruiz replied. "Neither explains the emergency call being prepared before Mr. Keller showed symptoms." The call ended, but the relief I expected never came. Natalie had spent her whole career speaking in rooms where people trusted the title before the person. Now she was using that trust to make my clean test look like one good morning in a bad year. By noon, the past arrived online. A blogger named Celeste Ward posted the first page of my old treatment file. My date of admission was visible. So was a note written during my worst week, when I had denied taking extra pills even after Elaine found the empty bottle. The headline read, "Arrested doctor's father had long history of deception around drugs." Under it, Natalie issued a statement through her attorney. "My father's medical information should never have been made public. Privacy matters, even when a family is in crisis. I remain committed to helping him receive care." Miriam read the statement twice. "She denies leaking it," I said. "She also confirms it is yours without saying how she knows," Miriam replied. The office heater clicked on. Warm air moved the smell of coffee and printer toner across the room. "Who had a copy?" she asked. "My treatment center." "Me. Elaine. Anyone else?" A memory surfaced with the sound of a scanner lid closing. 2 years earlier, after outpatient surgery, Natalie had sat at my dining table and complained that my emergency papers were scattered between drawers. She scanned my medication list, insurance card, recovery contacts, and older records into a family cloud folder. "You'll thank me when an ambulance crew doesn't have to dig through your sock drawer," she had said. I had shared the emergency folder, not the full archive. The estate binder had the recovery code, I told Miriam. Natalie knew where I kept it. Miriam's mouth tightened. Did she ever have permission to reset your password? No. Then we stopped guessing. She called Detective Ruiz, explained the old scan, and sent a written request that the cloud provider preserve login records, password resets, downloads, and connected device data. Miriam did not promise we would get them. She only asked Ruiz to move before anything disappeared. The wait lasted 2 days. During that time, Natalie left the courthouse through the front doors. Her attorney walked beside her, one hand raised toward the cameras. Colin came out through another entrance almost an hour later. He did not wear his engagement ring. Neither did she. Natalie stopped at the microphone cluster. "My father needs compassion," she said. "Addiction changes how a person understands events. I will not attack him for being ill." A reporter asked whether she had placed anything in the champagne. Natalie looked straight into the nearest camera. "I did not drug my father." Careful words. She had handed Colin the packet. She had told him what to do, but her own fingers had never emptied it into the glass. That evening, Frank sat at my kitchen table while I folded the clean test result into the estate binder. "You keep staring at that paper like it can make her take the words back," he said. "It can prove she lied. To a court, maybe. Not to everyone who already picked a side." The cedar box from my bedroom rested on the counter. One empty space remained inside where Elaine's flute had been. Frank touched the lid but did not open it. "What was your daughter afraid you'd find?" Before I could answer, Miriam called. The cloud company had responded to a warrant obtained by Detective Ruiz and the prosecutor. 4 days before the engagement party, someone reset my password from the internet address assigned to Keller Renewal Clinic. My recovery files were downloaded, then printed on a device registered to the clinic. The copy posted by Celeste Ward had the same file hash and the same faint scanner mark along the bottom edge. "There's more," Miriam said. A refrigerator motor hummed behind me. Frank stopped moving. "The account opened Elaine's estate scans too," Miriam continued. "It accessed the folder index and an image labeled Medication Summary March 6th. Natalie had not seen the full chart, but she had seen enough to know exactly what I planned to question. "Did she download it?" I asked. "No. But on the same night, Colin created a document called Family Medical Crisis." My grip tightened around the phone. Miriam's next words came slowly. "The printer identification from your leaked recovery file appears on another document Detective Ruiz just received. It's a destruction record for the clinic's medication lot." "When was it printed?" "After Natalie was released from custody." "Do not call your daughter," Miriam said, "not even to ask why the destruction record exists." Her voice came through my kitchen speaker while the refrigerator motor shuddered behind me. Frank sat across the table with both hands wrapped around a mug he had stopped drinking from. The coffee smelled scorched. My recovery coin lay beside Elaine's empty cedar box, its edge catching the yellow light above the stove. "I wasn't going to call her," I said. Frank looked at the phone, then at me. Miriam heard the silence. "Ray, wanting an answer and reaching for the person who lied are not the same thing. Detective Ruiz is taking this to the prosecutor. Let them move first." "What does the record say?" "It says the clinic destroyed the entire medication lot 2 weeks before the engagement party because the packaging was damaged. One packet from that lot was in the hotel trash." "Yes," Miriam said. "Which means the record is false, the count is false, or both." The confirmatory laboratory report arrived late the next morning. Detective Ruiz called while I was in Miriam's office, and the detective read only what she was permitted to share. The substance recovered from Elaine's flute matched the presumptive result. The torn wrapper carried a manufacturer lot number, a distributor code, and a packaging mark consistent with the sample inside the glass. Ruiz did not sound pleased. "The state medical board investigator served an administrative subpoena on the distributor," she said. "That lot was delivered to Keller Renewal Clinic." My thumb rubbed the seam of the estate binder. "How many units?" Miriam asked. "I can't give you the full count yet," Ruiz replied. "But the clinic reported all remaining units destroyed before the party." "Who witnessed the destruction?" I asked. A pause followed. "That is being checked," Ruiz said. By noon, every local station had a camera outside Natalie's clinic. I watched the coverage from Miriam's conference room because the detective had warned me to stay away. The screen showed the limestone entrance, the brass sign, and 2 state vehicles parked at the curb. Investigators from the medical board and the pharmacy control unit carried sealed cases through the front doors. Natalie stepped outside before anyone asked her to. She wore a cream coat and no engagement ring. Her attorney stood one pace behind. Camera shutters rattled as she lifted her chin. "My clinic welcomes transparency," Natalie told the reporters. "Patient safety has always come first." The same woman who had ordered Colin to drug my glass now stood beneath the word renewal and offered the city a calm smile. Miriam muted the television. "Ruiz says the physical inventory matched the electronic count," she said. "Perfectly?" That was her word. On the screen, an investigator photographed the medication cabinet. Fresh white evidence seals crossed the doors. The metal around them was scratched and dull, but the adhesive shone like it had been pressed there that morning. "Too clean," I said. Miriam closed her legal pad. "Clean is not proof of dirty." "No, but it tells you where to look next." The receptionist called from the front desk. A young woman named Tessa Grant was downstairs asking for me. Miriam's expression changed. "Do you know her?" "She manages clinic inventory." "Then we meet in the lobby. Public place. Cameras. No private office." Tessa stood beside a fake ficus tree with a padded mailing envelope clutched against her coat. She could not have been more than 28. Her clinic badge was gone, but a pale rectangle remained where it had hung from the fabric. "I have 10 minutes, Tessa said. "Maybe less." Miriam introduced herself and pointed to the lobby camera. "You are here voluntarily. Mr. Keller did not contact you. Do you understand?" "Yes," Tessa replied. "I found him because Dr. Keller kept saying his name." That sentence stayed between us. Tessa opened the envelope and removed a copied work order. Colin's name appeared at the bottom as the approving manager. 3 days before the engagement party, he had ordered the clinic's medication inventory migrated to an outside server. "What reason did he give?" I asked. "System modernization," Tessa said. "But we had updated 6 months earlier." A second document listed backup files transferred by the vendor. The old inventory database had not been erased. It had been moved. "Where is the server?" Miriam asked. Tessa shook her head. "Colin controlled the account. I only had access long enough to verify the transfer." "Did Natalie know?" Tessa pinched the envelope flap until the paper bent. She stood behind him while he submitted the request. Footsteps crossed the lobby tile. Tessa flinched and shoved the copies toward Miriam. "If they say I changed the medication count, they're lying," she whispered. "I reported the shortage." "To whom?" I asked. But the elevator opened, and Tessa walked out through the glass doors without answering. The question became harder to ask that afternoon. A sheriff's deputy came to my house carrying a temporary civil protection order. The paper made a dry snapping sound when he unfolded it on my porch. Natalie had submitted 3 emails I sent about Elaine's chart. A voicemail edited down to my words, "I will not let this stay buried," and a photograph of me across the street from Keller Renewal Clinic. Colin supplied a statement claiming I had followed them and threatened to destroy Natalie's career. The order barred me from contacting either of them or entering the clinic, their home, and the office complex surrounding Natalie's practice. A full hearing was scheduled for the following week. "You can contest it," the deputy said. "Until then, follow every line." "I understand." After he left, Miriam read the order at my dining table. "No calls," she said. "No messages through friends. No showing up where cameras can make coincidence look deliberate." "What about Tessa?" "You do not contact her. She came to me. And if she comes again, she goes through me or Detective Ruiz." The order smelled of warm toner. Natalie had taken my search for Elaine's truth and folded it into a threat. Less than an hour later, Keller Renewal Clinic announced that Tessa had been fired for inventory misconduct. Her photograph appeared beside the statement. Tessa denied meeting me when reporters reached her outside her apartment. Her voice shook as she said she had never given documents to anyone. Then she hurried inside and closed the door. Miriam watched the clip on her phone. "She is scared," I said. "She is also protecting herself," Miriam replied. "Those are not the same as lying about the documents." The medical board subpoenaed the technology vendor directly. 2 days later, the company confirmed that the work order and backup manifest were genuine. The outside server existed. So did the transfer Colin approved. Tessa had not invented anything. Someone had simply made sure she looked like the only person capable of changing the count. Detective Ruiz met Miriam at the prosecutor's office, then called us from a recorded conference line. I listened from Miriam's office with the protection order inside my briefcase. The destruction record was created after Dr. Keller was released from custody, Ruiz said. Not 2 weeks before the party. Miriam leaned toward the speaker. What about the witness signature? The named employee left the clinic 4 months ago. He denies signing it. And the electronic approval? Colin Reeves. That fit too easily. I stared at the grain of Miriam's conference table. Colin's name is meant to be found, I said. Ruiz was quiet for a moment. There is more. The vendor received a deletion request for the outside backup. From Colin? Miriam asked. No, Ruiz replied. The request came from an administrator account assigned to Natalie Keller. A paper shifted near the detective's phone. The deletion did not finish. The vendor froze the account after receiving the medical board subpoena. I am applying for a warrant so the server can be preserved and imaged properly. My shoulders loosened by half an inch. What is on it? I asked. We don't know yet, Ruiz said. But the backup manifest lists the folders that were transferred. Miriam reached for a pen. Ruiz read several names tied to inventory, billing, and destroyed stock. Then her voice slowed. One folder is older than the clinic system. The manifest says Colin imported it 3 years ago. What is it called? I asked. Detective Ruiz answered carefully. St. Catherine Legacy Exceptions. St. Catherine Legacy Exceptions, Miriam repeated. That is not a name someone chooses by accident. Detective Ruiz's voice came through the conference speaker. The warrant request is still pending. Until the server is imaged, none of us knows what the folder contains. A copy of the protection order lay beside my elbow, its paper edge curled from being handled. The office smelled of cold coffee and the lemon oil Miriam's receptionist used on the table. Outside the window, a delivery truck groaned through the intersection. Then the room went quiet again. I have something older, I said. Miriam turned toward me. What? Elaine's medication summary. The one she brought home. The cedar box in my house held more than the flute. After Elaine died, I had pushed hospital papers, insurance letters, and funeral receipts into folders without reading half of them. 6 years of dust had settled over the questions I was too tired to ask. Miriam drove behind me to my house. She would not let me carry originals alone now. Frank met us at the kitchen door, took one look at her document case, and moved the coffee pot out of the way. The estate binder opened with a crack from its stiff spine. Near the back, beneath Elaine's signed request for records, I found a cream-colored envelope with St. Catherine printed in blue. My wife's handwriting crossed the front. Printed at 312. Keep this one. The page inside smelled faintly of the lavender sachet she used in drawers. A rusty staple scratched my thumb when I unfolded it. Near the bottom, the emergency medication line was blank. Miriam placed a clear sleeve over the paper without touching the print. Where did she get this? She requested it from medical records that afternoon. I was there when an aide brought it to her room. And the later copy? The estate requested a certified electronic copy after she died. We laid the copies side by side. On the newer version, the blank line had become a completed entry. Medication administered. The listed time came before Elaine's paper had been printed. Miriam checked both pages, then opened the audit summary St. Catherine had already provided to the estate. The sequences are 18 minutes apart, she said. A username sat beside the change. Leah Morgan. The name brought back the smell of hospital soap before I remembered the woman's face. Leah had been Elaine's nurse that evening, a broad-shouldered woman with silver beginning at her temples. She had dropped a blue pen in the hallway while I waited for someone to tell me why my wife could not catch her breath. The chart is complete, Mr. Keller, Leah had said as she bent to pick it up. Her fingers missed the pen once. Complete means correct? I had asked. Leah stood with the pen trapped in her fist. It means everything that was entered is there. She had not looked at me. At the time, my recovery history was still the first thing I expected strangers to find when they searched my name. Elaine was dead. Natalie was crying into Colin's shirt. A hospital administrator had mentioned a review, and all I heard was the possibility of questions about pills, prescriptions, and whether the widower understood what he had seen. I signed for the papers. Then I went home. Frank slid the cold coffee away from me. You remember something else? I remember choosing the door. Miriam did not soften her voice. Then choose differently now. My executor papers gave me authority to request Elaine's designated record set, but not permission to wander through hospital systems. Miriam sent a formal request through St. Catherine's legal department. Detective Ruiz and the medical board investigator handled the demands for audit trails, badge records, hallway footage, and internal complaint files. No shortcuts. 3 days later, Leah returned the interview letter unopened. That same afternoon, Natalie's attorney spoke to reporters outside the courthouse. "We have reason to believe a former St. Catherine nurse, previously questioned about documentation practices, may be feeding Mr. Keller false claims," he said. "Dr. Keller will not participate in the public destruction of another healthcare worker." He never used Leah's name. He did not need to. By dinner, 2 news vans were parked outside her duplex. Miriam watched the footage on mute. Leah stood behind a screen door while a reporter shouted questions about Elaine's death. The nurse closed the inner door without answering. "Natalie wants everyone looking at Leah before Leah decides what to say," I said. "Or Leah changed the chart and Natalie knows it," Miriam replied. "Do not turn suspicion into innocence because your daughter is crueler." The badge logs arrived first. Leah had entered the medication area earlier that afternoon. Her credentials appeared on Elaine's chart. Her name remained on the altered entry. Then the hallway camera placed her 2 floors above Elaine's room when the main change was made. For 9 minutes, Leah was visible helping transport another patient. She could not have been sitting at the terminal listed in the audit. "That clears her," I said. "Not yet," Miriam replied. "She may have left the terminal open. Someone may have known her password. She may have given another person access." A second record showed Natalie's badge entering the resident's work area 6 minutes before the change. No camera covered the terminal itself. Close. Not enough. The St. Catherine attorney called the following morning. Risk management had found an internal complaint ticket connected to Elaine's room. It had been preserved because a review hold was placed after her death. The ticket began with a voicemail received at 4:47 that afternoon. Elaine's breathing failed less than 2 hours later. Miriam did not let the hospital email the audio to us. The prosecutor and medical board investigator sought the proper process for a forensic copy, along with the ticket history and access log. Until that happened, St. Catherine would provide only the written summary. We read it in Miriam's office. Patient concerned daughter used another employee's login to alter medication information. My chair legs scraped the floor. Miriam kept reading. Patient requests review before evening administration. Patient appears anxious. Possible confusion related to condition. The ticket had been closed 23 minutes after it was opened. Closure reason. Patient confused. No further action. "Who closed it?" I asked. "The user field is an internal code," Miriam said. "St. Catherine is matching it to a workstation and credential." My phone vibrated inside my coat. Natalie's attorney had sent Miriam a notice accusing me of violating the protection order by encouraging media harassment of Natalie. I had not spoken to a reporter since the clinic. The accusation was smoke. The ticket was fire. By late afternoon, St. Catherine produced the workstation location. The complaint had been closed from the resident's work area, the same section where Natalie's badge appeared. Still, the closing credential belonged to a supervising resident who had been in surgery. "Another borrowed login," I said. Miriam capped her pen. "Or a terminal left open. We prove the act before we name the hand." The final page of the ticket arrived just before the office closed. It contained the patient's routing request. "Do not send complaint to daughter. Patient states daughter is involved." Beneath it, the audit history listed every person who opened the ticket. A risk manager, a patient advocate, the resident whose credential later closed it, and Natalie Keller. She had opened her mother's complaint 12 minutes after Elaine specifically asked that it be kept from her. Miriam read the timestamp aloud. My mouth tasted like the metal rail beside Elaine's hospital bed. "Natalie told police she knew nothing about any complaint," I said. "Yes." She said I invented the chart problem after the funeral. "Yes." I looked down at the line bearing my daughter's name. Miriam closed the file before I could reach for it. "The audio still matters," she said. "A summary tells us what someone wrote. Your wife's voice may tell us what she actually said." "Het is phone. St. Catherine's attorney spoke long enough for Miriam's expression to change. When she hung up, one hand remained on the receiver. "The forensic copy has been authorized," she said. "But there is something you need to know before you hear it." "What?" "The voicemail is longer than the ticket summary." "How much longer?" "Almost 7 minutes." Miriam slid the estate binder toward me. "And Elaine did not only name Natalie. If your client wants his daughter out of his life, all he has to do is sign." Natalie's attorney placed the proposed agreement on Miriam's conference table as though he were setting down a dinner check. The paper was thick, warm from the printer, and scented faintly with the man's cedar cologne. Rain tapped the office window while the heating vent clicked above us. Miriam read the first page without touching the pen beside it. "That isn't what this says, Mr. Halpern." He crossed one ankle over the other. "It ends the family conflict. It requires Ray to say he misinterpreted the engagement party because of stress related to his recovery history." Miriam turned one page. "It also requires him to withdraw his regulatory complaint, decline voluntary interviews, and speak only when legally compelled." Halpern's smile stayed small. "He remains free to comply with a valid subpoena. Dr. Keller will also withdraw her request to extend the protection order, contribute toward his legal fees, and not oppose a limited addendum to Elaine Keller's medical record." My wife's name sounded wrong in his mouth. "What does Natalie want the addendum to say?" I asked. "That questions were raised after the patient's death," Halpern replied. "Nothing accusatory. Nothing that harms reputations without proof. And in return, I lie about the glass." "You acknowledge uncertainty." The kitchen camera wasn't uncertain. Halpern folded his hands. "Your daughter is facing the loss of her career because a frightened fiancé made a terrible choice." Miriam slid the agreement back across the table. "Your client handed him the packet. An image without sound can be interpreted several ways. The dispatch recording has sound," I said. "Natalie accused me of stealing clinic medication before anyone searched me." For the first time, Halpern looked directly at me. "Elaine valued privacy, Mr. Keller. Some families understand that dignity requires restraint." My recovery coin pressed against my thigh through the fabric of my pocket. "Elaine also kept records," I said. Halpern left the agreement on the table. Miriam waited until the elevator doors closed before placing it in a clear sleeve. "That was not an offer to repair anything," she said. "It was an attempt to purchase your testimony." The full hearing on Natalie's protection order took place the next morning. The courtroom smelled of wet wool and old paper. Colin sat behind Natalie, his jaw dark with stubble, while my daughter wore a navy dress and the expression she used beside nervous patients. Halpern described my 3 emails as escalating contact. He showed the judge a photograph of me across from Keller Renewal Clinic and played the shortened voicemail in which my voice said, "I will not let this stay buried." Miriam stood. "We request the complete recording." The clerk played it. My missing words filled the courtroom. "Natalie, I found 2 versions of your mother's medication summary. I'm asking you to explain the difference. I will not let this stay buried, but I will meet through counsel if that makes you more comfortable." No threat, no raised voice. Miriam then produced a dated pharmacy receipt showing I had been across the street to collect blood pressure medication before the temporary order existed. Detective Ruiz testified only to the timeline she had personally verified. The kitchen video showed Natalie handing Colin the packet. The dispatch recording showed her describing a relapse before I displayed a single symptom. The judge looked over her glasses at Natalie. "Dr. Keller, why did you tell the dispatcher your father stole medication from your clinic before anyone examined him or his belongings?" Natalie's chair creaked. "My father has patterns," she said. I recognized one. "What conduct did you personally observe that evening?" the judge asked. "He was suspicious. Fixated. Did it consume the champagne?" "No." "Did he threaten you?" Natalie's pause lasted long enough for someone in the gallery to cough. "Not in words," she said. The judge dissolved the temporary order. She warned both sides against direct contact and reminded us that the criminal case would proceed elsewhere. Natalie could no longer call me a stalker using a court-stamped page. Halpern gathered his exhibits without looking at Miriam. The unsigned agreement disappeared into his leather case. Colin leaned toward Natalie and whispered something that made her pull her arm away. It was the first time I had seen distance between them, small but visible. Reporters waited beyond the courtroom doors. Natalie stopped before the microphones and said the judge had decided only that a temporary order was no longer necessary. She did not say her evidence had fallen apart under full recordings and verified dates. One reporter asked whether she still believed I had relapsed. "My father's health is private," Natalie replied. The same woman who released my treatment pages now wanted privacy. In the hallway, she passed close enough for me to smell her jasmine perfume. "Mom would hate what you're doing," Natalie said. Miriam stepped between us. "Dr. Keller, communicate through counsel." Natalie kept walking. That afternoon, Assistant Prosecutor Dana Lee arranged for us to hear Elaine's complaint voicemail at the prosecutor's office. Detective Ruiz, the medical board investigator, Miriam, and I sat around a narrow table. The forensic copy remained on an evidence drive connected to a secured laptop. Dana explained where the original had been stored, why risk management had preserved it, and who had handled the copy. The room was windowless. The air conditioner gave off a thin rattle. Paper cups of water stood untouched beside each chair. Dana pressed play. Elaine's breathing came first. Not words. Breath. A shallow pull, a pause, then another. I gripped the chair beneath my palms. "This is Elaine Keller in room 412, my wife said. "I need this kept away from my daughter until someone independent reviews it." A woman on the line asked what had happened. "Natalie told me she borrowed Leah Morgan's login," Elaine said. "She said she corrected one medication entry because Leah left the terminal open. But the entry says I received something I did not receive." Dana glanced at me but did not stop the recording. Elaine continued, slower now. "I told Natalie to report it herself. I told her mistakes grow teeth when people feed them. She said I was confused from treatment." The patient advocate asked whether Elaine believed she was in immediate danger. "I believe a record is being changed to cover missing medication," my wife replied. "And I believe my daughter is scared enough to make another bad decision." There was a rustle, followed by Elaine speaking away from the phone. "No, Natalie. I'm handling it." My fingers locked around the chair edge. Natalie had entered the room while the complaint was still being recorded. The advocate asked whether she should call security. "No," Elaine said. "Give her the chance to tell the truth. But please don't let my daughter be the one who closes this." The recording ended with a click. For several seconds, the laptop fan was the only sound in the room. The paper cup beside me buckled beneath my thumb. Water spread across the table, but no one moved to wipe it up. 6 years earlier, I had stood beside Elaine's bed while Natalie told me her mother was confused. I had accepted that word because it asked less of me than doubt did. Now Elaine's own voice had crossed 6 years of locked storage and corrected us both. No farewell. No final message meant for me. Just my wife trying to keep one false line from becoming something larger. The badge logs placed Natalie inside the resident's work area when the complaint ticket was closed. They did not prove whose fingers touched the keyboard. They did prove she had opened the complaint after Elaine asked that it be kept from her. By evening, Halpern issued a statement claiming Leah had manipulated a confused patient and used Natalie's name to protect herself. Then Leah called Miriam. Her voice was low and uneven. "I have 2 photographs from the chart screen. Before and after. I'll bring them tomorrow." Miriam set the meeting for 10 in the morning and instructed Leah not to email anything. Detective Ruiz was notified so the originals could be received properly. Leah never arrived. At 10:15, Miriam called once. No answer. At 10:30, a text appeared from Leah's number. "Colin knows what I kept." Detective Ruiz sent officers to Leah's duplex. A neighbor's doorbell camera showed Colin arriving the previous evening with a document envelope. He stayed 11 minutes. Leah left alone 40 minutes later, carrying a small overnight bag and another envelope pressed beneath her coat. Police found her car that afternoon in a motel parking lot outside Columbus. The driver's door was unlocked. Her phone rested face down on the passenger seat. The envelope containing the photographs was gone. Leah called from a motel payphone before Detective Ruiz finished searching her car. Her voice came through Miriam's speaker in broken breaths, with the hiss of highway traffic behind her. "I left my cell because Colin said he could find me through it. Are you safe right now?" Miriam asked. "The room door locks. That's all I know." A fluorescent light buzzed over the table. My coffee had formed a bitter skin, while the protection order smelled of courthouse toner inside my briefcase. "Tell us where you are," Detective Ruiz said. "Do not leave the room. Do not destroy anything. An officer will come to you." Leah gave the motel name and room number, then lowered her voice. "Colin came to my house with an agreement. He said St. Catherine was preparing to blame me for Elaine's death. He knew my daughter just started her medical residency. He asked whether I wanted her first year to begin with reporters outside the hospital." My fingers tightened around the paper cup. "What was in the agreement?" Miriam asked. "A promise that I would never discuss Elaine, Natalie, missing medication, or the account changes. He called it protection. Did you sign?" "No." "What did you take with you?" "My old phone. The agreement. 2 photographs. I put them in a grocery envelope because I was afraid Colin would search my purse. Leah stopped speaking. A truck rolled past wherever she was, rattling the payphone receiver. The envelope is not in your car, Ruiz said. I know. I mailed it. To whom? To myself. Certified mail. From a post office outside Columbus. Detective Ruiz let out one slow breath. Good. Stay where you are. Officers reached Leah before noon. Ruiz arranged for her motel room, clothing, old phone, and the unsigned agreement to be documented and collected through evidence procedures. Miriam and I were allowed to sit in a separate interview room at the prosecutor's office while Leah spoke with the detective and her own attorney. We heard only what Ruiz later summarized and Leah agreed could be shared. By late afternoon, Leah sat across from me with a paper cup between both hands. Her once silver-streaked hair was nearly white. Her shoulders curved inward beneath a brown cardigan. No makeup, no prepared tears. I left my terminal open, Leah said. Elaine asked me to check on another patient upstairs, and I ran before the screen locked. Miriam sat beside me. What happened when you returned? Natalie was at the workstation. Did you see what she changed? No, Leah replied. She said her mother's record showed the wrong time for a routine entry. She said she corrected it to prevent a pharmacy delay. What did you do? I asked. Leah looked at the cup. I believed the part that protected me. The paper rim collapsed beneath her thumb. Later that evening, Elaine's breathing worsened. Leah opened the chart and saw that an emergency reversal medication had been marked as administered at a time when the drug had not been brought into the room. I asked Natalie about it, Leah said. She told me another nurse must have given it while I was upstairs. Was that possible? Miriam asked. No. Leah had checked the dispensing cabinet. One unit was missing from inventory, but no nurse had signed it out for Elaine. The chart made the missing unit appear used. When Leah raised the issue again, Natalie said the system clock had been wrong and Colin, a contractor supporting the hospital's medication software, would fix the synchronization. You knew Colin then? I asked. I knew his company name, Leah said. MedAxis. Natalie called him the tech guy. Ruiz placed a clear evidence sleeve on the table. Inside was the unsigned agreement Colin had brought to Leah's home. One paragraph required her to accept sole responsibility for any inaccurate entry associated with her credentials. Another promised the clinic would support her claim that grief and exhaustion impaired her memory. He brought you a confession, I said. He brought me a coffin with a signature line. The certified envelope arrived at Leah's home the next morning. Postal tracking confirmed the route. Ruiz opened it after documenting the seal. Inside were 2 printed photographs, each showing a hospital computer screen. Leah had taken them with an older phone because St. Catherine prohibited personal photos in clinical areas. The first image showed Elaine's chart before the main alteration. The emergency medication line was blank. The second showed the completed entry, with a timestamp that placed administration before Elaine printed her own summary. Leah's old phone still held the original image files. Their creation times matched that night. You took these because you planned to report it? I asked. Leah's mouth pulled tight. I took them because I wanted proof someone else had touched my account. Not for Elaine, for herself. Then she admitted the part Natalie had used for 6 years. After finding the false medication entry, Leah changed a separate timestamp showing when she returned to the floor. She moved it back by 7 minutes so the record would not reveal that she had left her terminal unlocked longer than policy allowed. I thought I was closing one crack, Leah said. Instead, I gave her a place to hide. Miriam did not rescue her from the sentence. Neither did I. Why did you stay silent after Elaine died? I asked. Because the audit showed my credentials. Because I had changed a time. Because Natalie said the hospital would call the whole chart mine. Leah raised her eyes. And because you signed the discharge papers without demanding another review, I understood what Leah meant. I had signed the final release documents, accepted the administrator's careful language, and taken Natalie's hand when she said her mother would not want us tearing each other apart. My silence had looked like agreement. Ruiz later confirmed what the photographs suggested. Badge records and hallway video placed Leah on another floor during the main chart alteration. Natalie's badge entered the resident's work area 6 minutes before the change and left 4 minutes after it. The camera did not show the keyboard, but Leah could not have made the principal entry from where she stood. Her smaller lie remained. It just could not carry Natalie's larger one. The next evidence arrived through a separate warrant tied to the anonymous account that sent my recovery file to Celeste Ward. The account had been created through a prepaid mobile connection, but the upload session connected to a tablet Natalie regularly used at the clinic. Device records showed the same tablet reset my cloud password, downloaded the recovery file, and opened Elaine's estate folder. The leaked PDF matched the downloaded copy exactly. Same file hash, same faint scanner line near the bottom, same clinic printer identification embedded in the rescanned version. Miriam drew the sequence on a legal pad while Detective Ruiz spoke. Reset, Miriam said. Download, print, scan, upload. Ruiz nodded. Each step is supported by a different record. Natalie could still argue someone used her tablet. She could argue clinic employees shared devices. But the upload happened while her badge was inside her private office, and her account approved the printer job. Her statement about privacy now had records beneath it. Leah's old photographs carried one final detail. At the bottom of the audit window, beneath her username, sat an administrator group, MedAccess Clinical Support. The hospital's archived access records showed several technicians belonged to that group in the year Elaine died. Colin managed the account, but the group name alone could not prove he made the change. Leah studied the enlarged image. Natalie said, "The tech guy fixed the clock," she recalled. "That was after I asked why the time changed twice." "Did she say Colin's name?" Ruiz asked. "No." "Did you ever see him at the terminal?" "No. Not enough." The prosecutor requested archived service tickets from MedAccess rather than asking Leah to turn memory into proof. The archive search took several weeks. By early June, Colin's attorney was denying that his client had any role in St. Catherine's records and calling the motel visit an attempt to protect a frightened witness from media pressure. Then, MedAccess produced a ticket preserved in an old compliance archive. Miriam read it beside me at the prosecutor's office. The request had been opened at 6:31 on the night Elaine died. The description asked for correction of a synchronization error affecting one patient chart. The requester was Natalie Keller. Temporary administrator access was granted 6 minutes later. The ticket was closed at 7:12. Under completed by, one name appeared, Colin Reeves. Colin Reeves had closed the service ticket 12 minutes after Natalie asked for temporary administrator access. Miriam set the printed record beside Leah's photographs. The paper made a soft slap against the conference table. A copier hummed beyond the wall, and the bitter smell of reheated coffee sat under the sharper scent of toner. "He wasn't dating her then," I said. "Not publicly," Miriam replied. Detective Ruiz turned the ticket toward me. MedAccess payroll records put him on the hospital account. He had authority to issue emergency access when clinical systems failed. This was not an emergency. The request claimed a clock synchronization problem had affected one chart. No nursing supervisor had approved it. No hospital administrator had signed off. Colin granted Natalie elevated access, then closed the ticket himself. "What did he get?" I asked. Ruiz tapped a payment record clipped behind the ticket. "A consulting fee routed through a vendor Natalie recommended. Small enough not to draw attention. The invoice described routine after-hours support. No patient name, no mention of Elaine. Just a flat fee paid the following week, clean enough to pass through accounts payable without a second question." 6 years later, Natalie had hired him to run Keller Renewal Clinic. That did not look like romance anymore. It looked like storage. Each of them held a piece of the other's worst night. The assistant prosecutor called Miriam before lunch. Colin's attorney wanted a proffer session. Anything Colin said would have to be checked against independent evidence before the state considered a plea. He was not asking to meet me, and Dana Lee made that point twice. "You do not negotiate his freedom," Miriam said after the call. "You may submit your position as the victim in the engagement case. The prosecutor decides what is offered." "What does Colin want?" "A guarantee he won't carry Natalie's full sentence." He put the packet in Elaine's glass. "Yes," Miriam said. "And cooperation does not erase his hand from the video." I looked at the recovery coin lying near my legal pad. Its edge had worn smooth over 18 years. "Tell Dana I won't ask for mercy." "I'll tell her you oppose immunity," Miriam replied. "Those are different sentences." Through June and most of July, the prosecutor refused to trade speed for a weak case. Colin's first session lasted nearly 6 hours. I was not in the room. Dana later gave Miriam a summary limited to information that could be disclosed. Colin admitted granting Natalie temporary access at St. Catherine. He claimed he believed she was correcting a harmless timing error. He also admitted the payment came after he closed the ticket. When Dana asked why Natalie hired him 3 years later, Colin said she trusted his discretion. The word made Miriam's mouth flatten. 2 days after the proffer, Colin surrendered a laptop, a tablet, and 2 phones through his attorney. Forensic examiners made copies before anyone searched the contents. Colin provided passwords, but Dana warned that cooperation could still include carefully selected truth. The first file they found was not hidden. It sat inside a folder labeled Communications Planning. Natalie had drafted a public statement before the engagement party. In it, she described herself as a physician trapped by a controlling fiancé who had stolen medication from her clinic, manipulated her concern for her father, and acted alone to create a family crisis. Colin's name appeared in every paragraph. Mine appeared twice. Natalie had written that my relapse history made me easy to frighten and difficult to believe. She prepared to blame him before he touched the glass, I said. Miriam nodded. And before he became her husband, attached spreadsheets listed vendors that had supplied Keller Renewal Clinic. Several companies used Colin's apartment address, his private email, or bank accounts he controlled. Purchase orders for the destroyed medication lot ran through one of those companies. Colin had signed where Natalie told him to sign. He had collected fees. He had built the trail around himself. Then he seemed shocked to find footprints. A second proffer followed. This time, Colin's attorney asked Dana to recognize that his client had been used. Dana's answer reached us through Miriam. Being chosen to take the blame does not turn an accomplice into a bystander. Colin finally admitted Natalie had chosen Elaine's flute because no server would mix it with the other glasses. She wanted one controlled object, one target, and one story for the dispatcher. Cloud records recovered messages they had deleted from their phones. Use Mom's flute. He will not refuse it in front of everyone. Call before anyone tests him. He needs to sound exactly like rehab. If they take the packet, wipe the backup. The lines were short, domestic, almost dull. That made them worse. Colin told Dana he thought the plan was meant to stop me from meeting the medical board investigator. According to him, Natalie said a documented relapse would make my questions about Elaine look like grief mixed with addiction. He denied knowing the old chart change had contributed to her death. Some records supported him. Others did not. He had created the old service ticket. He had moved clinic inventory data to the outside server. He had visited Leah with a confession disguised as protection. He had also written Natalie messages asking whether I had found the old complaint. Clean hands were no longer available to him. Miriam let me read the verified excerpts in silence. When I finished, she said, "Colin's attorney wants your victim statement before the state discusses numbers." I folded the pages once, then opened them again. My statement is simple. What do you want it to say? He can tell the truth. He can help recover every record he tried to erase. But he does not get to call obedience innocence. Miriam wrote the sentence down. The warrant for the outside server came 4 days later. Dana used the laboratory result, the clinic lot records, the false destruction form, the vendor manifest, Colin's messages, and the attempt to pressure Leah. A judge approved the search. I did not go to the clinic. Miriam did not go either. Detective Ruiz later explained that a forensic team took custody of the server image from the vendor, verified the copy, and preserved the original environment. Ray Keller, retired pharmacist and angry father, had no place near that process. Waiting was its own room. Frank sat with me at my kitchen table, while the clock above the stove clicked through an entire afternoon. Elaine's cedar box rested on the counter. The empty groove where her flute belonged looked deeper than it was. Near dusk, Miriam called. They found the historical folder, she said. St. Catherine Legacy Exceptions? Yes. Inside it is another folder called EK Historical. My chair scraped the floor. What is in it? A scan of Elaine's complaint ticket, old inventory screenshots, a copy of the MedAccess request, and an audio file. Frank set down his mug. Whose voice? I asked. They have to verify the metadata and compare it with the hospital copy. Dana will not let anyone characterize it before that. The verification took 2 days. The file had been created on Natalie's phone in Elaine's hospital room and later transferred into Colin's system. It had not been forgotten. A note attached to the archive read, "Keep in case she changes story." Natalie had preserved my wife's voice as insurance. Dana arranged a controlled playback at the prosecutor's office. Ruiz, Miriam, the medical board investigator, and a forensic analyst sat with me around the same narrow table where I had heard Elaine's complaint voicemail. The laptop fan whispered beneath the analyst's explanation of the file history. My palms stayed flat against my knees. The room smelled of dust from the vents and the mint gum Dana had stopped chewing. Nobody reached for the water. Then Natalie's younger voice filled the room. "Mom, if you report this, Dad will think you destroyed me." Elaine answered without raising her voice. "Your father survived because he finally stopped asking lies to protect him. I fixed a record. Nobody was hurt. You marked a medication as given when it was not." Natalie's breath struck the phone microphone. "You don't understand what one report will do to my career. I understand exactly why you are afraid." A chair moved in the recording. Fabric brushed against the phone. Natalie spoke again, lower now. "You can withdraw the complaint. Tell them you were confused." Elaine waited. When she answered, every word landed cleanly. "I already printed the chart, Natalie." Silence followed. Not empty silence. The kind filled by someone recalculating. Then a door opened inside Elaine's hospital room. Footsteps entered. The recording ended. The footsteps on Natalie's recording belonged to Leah. She confirmed it from the sound of her shoes before the forensic analyst played the file a second time. Rubber soles squeaked once against the hospital floor, followed by the soft tap of the metal clipboard she used that night. "That is me coming back from upstairs," Leah said. Her voice reached us through a secure call from the prosecutor's office. The conference room smelled of dust from the vents and the peppermint Dana Lee had left unopened beside her legal pad. On the laptop, Elaine's recording ended less than a second after Leah entered. Natalie had not forgotten to record the rest. She had stopped it. Miriam leaned toward the speaker. "What happened when you walked in?" Elaine had the printed chart in her lap, Leah replied. Natalie was standing beside the bed with her phone in one hand. Neither of them spoke until I asked whether something was wrong. "What did Dr. Keller say?" Dana asked. "She said her mother was tired and confused." The same sentence Natalie used on me. Leah cleared her throat. Elaine held out the page and asked me whether the emergency medication had been given. I said I needed to check. Natalie told me the system had already been corrected. The analyst froze the audio timeline on the screen. Natalie had preserved only the portion where Elaine begged her to report the false entry. She had cut the file before Leah could become a witness. "Why keep any of it?" I asked. Dana closed the laptop. "Control. If Elaine later accused her publicly, Natalie could play selected lines and claim her mother was threatening her career." In early August, after weeks of review, an independent physician and a hospital pharmacy expert met with the investigators. I was allowed to hear their conclusions after they completed a written report, but not to sit beside them while they built it. They used Elaine's printed summary from 312, the later electronic chart, the cabinet inventory, badge records, the med-access ticket, Leah's photographs, and the patient relations file. Miriam and I listened in Dana's office while the physician explained the sequence. Earlier that day, one unit of an emergency medicine used to reverse dangerous sedation had been taken from controlled hospital stock for an off-book procedure involving a wealthy private client outside the hospital. Natalie arranged the removal. To hide the missing unit, she entered that it had been used for Elaine during a medically possible event. It had not. Hours later, Elaine suffered a real breathing emergency caused by a complication of lawful treatment. The team opened her chart and saw that the reversal medicine had already been administered. Nurses searched for an unusual reaction. Pharmacy staff checked whether another unit was available. A physician considered other causes because the chart said the first response had failed. Minutes passed. Not many. Enough. The independent physician did not say Natalie intended to kill her mother. He did not say one false line was the only reason Elaine died. The inaccurate entry materially reduced the time available for the correct response, he said. It lowered her chance of receiving effective intervention before the respiratory failure became irreversible. The words came without anger. That made them harder to push away. Dana handed me a copy of the expert summary. The pages felt heavier than the estate binder, though there were only 12. A timeline ran down the margin in narrow black type. Each delay had a source beside it. False administration entry, inventory search, call to pharmacy, second cabinet check. By the time the team understood the chart was wrong, Elaine's oxygen level had fallen past the point where the first response was likely to work. No single line said Natalie killed her mother. Every line showed what her lie had cost. After the meeting, Miriam found me standing beside the courthouse elevator. The brass doors reflected my coat, and the estate binder clamped beneath my arm. "You did not create the entry," she said. "I signed the hospital release. You were a widower being given incomplete information." I also stopped asking. That memory had waited in a quiet place. 2 days after Elaine's funeral, Natalie sat at my kitchen table with both hands around a mug of tea. Her engagement ring did not exist yet. Colin was only a name I had heard once or twice. "Dad," she had said, "the hospital wants to know whether you expect a deeper review." A stack of recovery records sat near my elbow because the hospital had asked about every medication I had ever misused. Reporters had not come. Police had not called. Still, I could already hear strangers deciding what kind of husband a former addict had been. "No more questions," I told her. Natalie lowered her eyes. "That may be kinder to Mom." 6 years later, the memory of her thumb circling the rim of that mug made my skin crawl. "I gave her silence," I told Miriam. "You gave her silence after she gave you a lie," Miriam replied. "Do not turn regret into a confession for someone else's act." The next blow arrived at my house on a Sunday afternoon. Halpern sent Miriam a private link and a document labeled Family Statement. Natalie appeared on the video in a plain gray sweater, seated against a blank wall. No clinic sign, no attorney beside her. Her face held the careful stillness she used when speaking to frightened families. "Dad," Natalie said, "this can end without Mom becoming public property." A script appeared beneath the video. All I had to do was read it on camera. The words said stress had damaged my judgment. They said I may have been close to relapse. They said I misunderstood a private conversation and that Colin acted without Natalie's knowledge. In exchange, Natalie would accept responsibility for a minor offense in the engagement case, stop opposing an addendum to Elaine's record, and ask her attorney not to challenge my clean test. One paragraph warned that if I refused, the defense would examine my entire recovery history in open court. The threat wore my daughter's voice. Frank sat across from me while the video replayed. The refrigerator clicked off, leaving the kitchen so quiet I could hear the cloth of his sleeve move when he folded his arms. "She wants you to say you lied," Frank said. "She wants me to say I might not know." Same grave. Softer shovel. My recovery coin rested beside the phone. 18 years had rubbed the raised lettering nearly flat. I picked it up, then opened the camera app. For 1 second, the script waited on the table. Instead of reading it, I recorded my own statement. "My name is Raymond Keller. I will not describe a crime as confusion to make it easier for my daughter to survive the truth. I did not relapse. Colin did not act alone. Elaine asked Natalie to correct a false record, and Natalie chose to hide it." I stopped the recording. Frank looked at the coin in my palm. "You keeping that for luck?" "No." "What for?" "To remember I stopped asking lies to live in my place." Miriam received the original link, the attached script, the email headers, and my response. She preserved all of it before sending copies to Dana and Detective Ruiz. The prosecutor warned that the defense might call it a family settlement attempt. Dana did not promise a charge. "She is still asking a witness to replace a verified account with a false one," Dana said. "We will document it and let the evidence decide what it becomes." 2 envelopes arrived 3 days later. The first came from the Ohio State Medical Board. It ordered me to appear at an emergency suspension hearing concerning Natalie's license. The notice made clear that the board would decide whether she could continue practicing while the full case moved forward. The second came from the county court. It summoned me to a separate pretrial hearing several days later. There, the judge would decide which parts of Elaine's case could be mentioned in the prosecution over the engagement glass. Miriam placed the notices side by side. "Different rooms," she said. "Different rules." Some a lie. Not entirely. The board may hear evidence about patient safety that the criminal judge keeps away from a jury. And the criminal defense will try to use your recovery history to show bias. I read the hearing dates again. One room would decide whether Natalie could still call herself a doctor. The other would decide how much of Elaine's voice the law would allow the living to hear. In late August, the first room had no jury box and no power to send Natalie to prison. That did not make it gentle. A seal for the Ohio State Medical Board hung behind 3 panel members. The room smelled of floor wax and burnt coffee. My shoes squeaked when I shifted. Across the aisle, Natalie sat beside Halpern in a dark suit with no white coat to soften her. The board attorney began with the hotel video. No one raised a voice while the screen showed Natalie place the packet in Colin's palm. Rosa stepped toward the flute. My daughter blocked her. Colin emptied the packet, then turned his body as if his shoulder could hide what his hand had done. Next came the laboratory report, the clinic lot records, the false destruction form, and the attempted deletion of the outside backup. Each document arrived through the person responsible for preserving or verifying it. Detective Ruiz explained the hotel evidence. The pharmacy control investigator described the lot. A forensic analyst traced the cloud reset and deletion request. When my turn came, the board attorney placed Elaine's paper medication summary before me inside a clear sleeve. "Do you recognize this document, Mr. Keller?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "My wife brought it home from St. Catharines 6 years ago." "How do you know that?" I watched an aide hand it to her. Elaine wrote the print time on the envelope. Halpern stood. "Mr. Keller is not offering a medical opinion, correct?" The board chair answered before I could. "He is identifying his own document." "Sit down, counsel." Natalie testified last. "My father was under strain," she said. "His attention had narrowed around my mother's death. I believed Colin was giving him something mild to settle him, not harming him." The board attorney looked at her notes. "Why did you tell the dispatcher your father stole medication before anyone searched him?" Natalie's fingertips pressed together. I recognized behavior I had seen before. Did he drink from the flute? No. Did he stumble? No. Did he slur his speech? My concern was preventive. The chair glanced toward the other members. Pens moved. Paper whispered. Less than an hour later, the board ordered Natalie's license suspended on an emergency basis while the disciplinary case continued. The chair made clear that the order was not a criminal conviction and not yet permanent. Natalie could not examine patients, prescribe, supervise clinical care, or control medication records. Her face barely moved. Outside, cameras waited beneath a gray afternoon sky. Natalie stopped at the courthouse steps and lifted her chin. "This is temporary," she told the reporters. "Facts survive panic. So did records." By the end of that week, a receiver appointed through a separate civil case had taken control of Keller Renewal Clinic for limited purposes. Patients would be transferred, medication would be secured, records would be preserved. The brass clinic sign remained on the stone wall, but white administrative paper covered the front doors. I watched from across the street inside Miriam's parked car because she would not let me turn the closure into a spectacle. A maintenance worker pressed the last seal flat with the heel of his hand. Natalie stood on the sidewalk beside Halpern. When a reporter asked whether the clinic was finished, my daughter looked at the covered doors. "A piece of paper does not erase what I built," she said. Miriam shut off the radio feed. "She is right about one thing. This is not the final order." In November, after months of forensic review, the criminal hearing took place in a different building before another decision-maker. This room had a judge, a clerk, a court reporter, and a wooden rail polished by decades of waiting hands. The air smelled of dust and damp wool. Dana Lee stood for the state. Halpern represented Natalie. Colin sat at another table with his own attorney, separated from the woman he had planned to marry. Dana did not ask the judge to try Elaine's death inside the engagement case. She asked to use limited pieces of the older conduct to explain why Natalie wanted me discredited, why she chose a medication story, and why the deletion attempts were not accidents. Halpern objected. "The state wants a second prosecution without an indictment, and a dead woman whose suffering will overwhelm the actual charge," Dana answered evenly. "We are not asking the court to declare Dr. Keller responsible for Elaine Keller's death here. We are asking to present the false chart entry, the complaint she accessed, the administrator ticket, and the later offer to purchase Mr. Keller's silence. Each goes to motive, knowledge, and plan." The judge restricted the state sharply. Elaine's final decline would not be described in detail. The longer emotional recordings would not play before a jury unless another ruling allowed a specific portion. The jury could hear that a disputed chart entry existed. that Elaine complained, that Natalie accessed the complaint, and that Colin issued temporary administrator rights. The judge also allowed the later settlement script because it asked me to replace verified facts with statements the evidence contradicted. Then Halpern called me. He began with the year I entered treatment. "Were you truthful with your wife during active addiction?" Halpern asked. "No." "Did you hide pills?" "Yes." "Did you deny taking them after Elaine confronted you?" "Yes." A pen scratched somewhere behind me. Halpern stepped closer. "So when Dr. Keller says you have misunderstood events while focused on medication, that concern is not invented from nothing, is it?" "My past is real," I said. "And guilt about your wife's death? That is real too. Then your conclusions may be shaped by shame." I looked at Natalie. Her gaze stayed on the legal pad before her. "My past taught me something useful," I said. "One lie needs another lie to carry it. Then a third. Soon everybody around it is lifting." Halpern's jaw tightened. "That was not my question. It is my answer." He could not expose what I had already placed on the table myself. The treatment dates, the hidden bottles, that denial, none of it changed the clean test, the untouched flute, the camera, or Natalie's call to emergency services before I showed a symptom. Leah came next. Her voice shook when she admitted leaving the terminal open and changing her own return time by 7 minutes. "So you altered the record," Halpern said. "A separate timestamp," Leah replied. "You lied in a medical chart." "Yes. And now you expect this court to believe someone else made the important alteration." Leah folded her hands to stop them moving. "I gave Natalie an open terminal. I gave her 6 years of silence. I did not give her my hands." Dana introduced the original photographs from Leah's old phone, the creation times, the hallway camera, and the med-access ticket. When the principal chart entry changed, Leah was visible on another floor. Colin had granted Natalie administrator access. The smaller lie made Leah flawed. It did not place her at the keyboard. Colin's appearance came last. His attorney led him through the proffer points, but Dana matched each important claim to something outside his mouth. Natalie's messages supported the plan for the flute. The clinic tablet supported the cloud intrusion. The vendor log supported the deletion request. The draft statement showed Natalie had prepared to blame Colin, but the judge reminded everyone that her betrayal of him did not make him truthful by itself. "Why are you cooperating now?" Halpern asked. Colin swallowed. "Because I found the document where she wrote that I acted alone. So you want less prison?" "Yes. Not truth, a bargain. Both can exist," Colin said. Natalie looked at him. No plea passed between them. No softness. Only the steady stare someone gives a machine that has stopped working at the worst possible time. At the end of the hearing, the judge allowed the limited evidence and warned that no jury would be told the older allegations proved guilt in the Champagne case. Dana also confirmed that a separate grand jury investigation into Elaine's death was continuing. Outside the courtroom, Dana handed Miriam a sealed plea proposal. The combined recommendation, if Natalie accepted responsibility across the current charges and the older death case, carried a minimum structure totaling about 16 years. Colin's offer remained separate and depended on complete cooperation and restitution. Natalie did not answer that day. Her license remained suspended. The clinic stayed under receivership. Permanent revocation would be considered after the disciplinary record was complete. Near sunset, Halpern approached Miriam in the courthouse corridor and passed her a folded note. "For Mr. Keller," he said. Miriam opened it only after we reached her office. Natalie's handwriting crossed the page in narrow blue lines. "If I go to trial, Mom's last hours become public forever. Meet me before you decide what you are willing to do to her." By early January, a grand jury had indicted Natalie in Elaine's death. After prosecutors presented the deletion attempt and the pressure placed on Leah, a judge revoked her bond while the two cases were resolved. Natalie sat behind the glass without her white coat, her engagement ring, or the jasmine perfume that usually reached a room before she did. A phone receiver hung beside her shoulder. When she lifted it, the cord scraped the metal ledge with a dry hiss. The visitation room smelled of disinfectant and old coffee, and the plastic chair beneath me flexed whenever I shifted my weight. "You brought Miriam," Natalie said. My attorney sat several feet behind me, close enough to hear my side but not the voice coming through the receiver. Halpern waited behind Natalie with a legal pad closed on his knee. "You asked to meet," I said. "I asked for my father. You have him." Her eyes moved toward Miriam, then back to me. If I take this to trial, Mom's last hours become exhibits. Strangers will listen to her breathing. They'll argue over every medication, every mistake, every word she said when she was sick. For 6 years, strangers read a chart that was false. I can fix the chart. The hospital is already doing that. Natalie pressed her free hand against the glass. You know what I mean. Quietly. Nothing in her face asked whether Elaine deserved the truth. She was measuring how much truth might cost. My offer expires tomorrow, Natalie said. I plead to the engagement charge. The hospital adds a note. You tell Dana the rest should stay private. And Elaine's death? A complication. That is what it was until you needed someone to blame. The receiver warmed against my ear. Somewhere beyond the wall, a steel door shut with a heavy mechanical thud. You heard her complaint, I said. I heard a frightened patient. You heard your mother give you a way out. Natalie's mouth tightened. Mom would not want her daughter in prison. Elaine said what she wanted. She asked you to correct the record before somebody else got hurt. My childhood was spent watching you count pills, hide bottles, make promises, and forget them. I learned early that if I did not control every detail, our family fell apart. The words were not invented. I had missed dinners, lied about refills, made Elaine search cabinets while Natalie stood in the hallway pretending not to listen. I did that to you, I said. I made home uncertain. I made your mother carry what I refused to admit. Natalie leaned closer to the glass, but my lies did not put the packet in Colin's hand. They did not change Elaine's chart. They did not send reporters my treatment records. Those belong to you. A tremor passed through the receiver cord. Do you still love me? She asked. Yes. The answer stopped her for half a second. Then she whispered, Prove it. I took the recovery coin from my pocket and laid it on the metal shelf between us. The glass divided the worn silver circle from her hand. Love is not my signature under a false statement. Natalie stared at the coin. I heard the scratch of her chair as she leaned forward, then the faint click of her thumbnail against the receiver. You are choosing prosecutors, nurses, and strangers over your own daughter. No. I stopped choosing your lie over everyone it hurt. Halpern touched her shoulder. Natalie pulled away from him and lowered the receiver. 3 days later, she authorized Halpern to accept the plea package. At the formal plea hearing later that month, papers slid across polished wood, and the clerk read both case numbers. Natalie answered the judge in a voice stripped of the warmth she used with cameras. She admitted directing Colin to put the substance in my flute. She admitted the false emergency story, the cloud intrusion, the leaked records, the deletion request, and the pressure placed on Leah. In the older case, she pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter tied to the felony record tampering and the delay it caused during Elaine's respiratory emergency. Some older offenses were not charged separately because their filing periods had passed. Dana stated that on the record. The current obstruction, tampering, unauthorized access, witness intimidation, and drink-related counts remained part of the sentencing structure. The judge explained that the major terms would run one after another, while lesser-related counts would run at the same time. The combined recommendation came to about 16 years, with sentencing set for a later hearing. Natalie stood with both hands at her sides. When the judge asked whether anyone had promised her a different result, she said, No, Your Honor. When he asked whether she understood that her medical career would likely end, her gaze shifted toward the gallery. Yes, Your Honor. At a separate sentencing hearing several weeks later, my victim statement stayed short. I am not asking the court to punish Natalie because she is my daughter. I am asking the court not to excuse what she did because she is. No one gasped. No one applauded. The judge imposed the agreed sentence. Colin appeared in a separate hearing the following week. His cooperation had been checked against server records, messages, payment trails, and the devices he surrendered. It reduced his exposure, but it did not erase the glass, the false forms, or the envelope he carried to Leah. He received about 5 years, along with restitution and a prohibition on managing medical records or healthcare operations as a condition of post-release supervision. Natalie did not look at him when deputies led him away. Leah faced a different room. Her nursing board disciplined her for leaving the terminal unsecured, changing the secondary timestamp, and staying silent. She accepted a limited agreement that included suspension, supervision, and retraining. No finding made her responsible for Elaine's death. I should have spoken before fear became a habit, Leah told me after the hearing. I did not tell her everything was forgiven. I said, "You spoke while it could still protect someone else." The medical board's final order came after Natalie's plea. Her license was permanently revoked. Keller Renewal Clinic remained under the court-appointed receiver, while patients were transferred. Payroll was closed, secured debts were reviewed, and records were preserved. The clinic did not vanish overnight. Its brass sign came down on a rain-dark spring morning 14 months after the engagement party. Bolts squealed against stone while two workers lowered Natalie's name onto a padded cart. Malpractice insurance, a civil settlement, and assets legally recovered from the clinic created a compensation fund after wages, secured claims, and administration costs were paid. Miriam showed me each document before I signed anything. "No miracles," she said. "Only accounting." St. Catherine did not erase Elaine's original chart. The hospital attached a formal addendum identifying the medication entry as improperly altered, noting that her complaint had been closed through an unauthorized process and recording the independent conclusion that the false entry materially reduced the time available for effective treatment. The old entry remained visible. So did the audit trail. "That matters," Miriam said as we read the certified copy. "Correction is not pretending the lie never existed." Elaine's flute stayed in evidence custody while post-conviction deadlines ran. Detective Ruiz called when the property unit asked whether I wanted special instructions noted for its eventual return. "Do not polish out the scratch," I said, "and leave her name exactly as it is." The final paperwork arrived several weeks after the clinic sign came down. Inside the packet was a request from St. Catherine. The hospital wanted permission to use a carefully edited portion of Elaine's voicemail in patient safety training. Every other patient identifier would be removed. Her voice would be used to teach staff that complaints involving family members could not be routed back to the person accused. I signed limited consent, not ownership of her story. Permission for one purpose. My last visit with Natalie happened after sentencing, in the same room with the same glass. Her prison uniform made her look smaller, but her voice still searched for the old doors. "Dad," she said. One word. The word that had once made me rush to repair whatever she had broken. I placed the recovery coin on the ledge. Natalie's eyes dropped to it. "Are you leaving that for me?" "No." My fingers closed around the coin again. She stared at my fist. "Then why bring it?" "To remember that the truth did not destroy this family. The lies did." Natalie's lips parted, but nothing came through the receiver. I stood. The last thing she saw was not anger on my face. It was the one thing she had spent 6 years trying to erase. Certainty. You may never stand in a courtroom holding a recovery coin while someone you love tries to rewrite your past. But you may recognize the smaller version of that moment. It happens when a relative asks you to stay quiet for the family, when an apology arrives with conditions, or when someone uses an old mistake to make every truth you tell sound unreliable. That is when you need to remember this. Loving someone does not require you to protect the harm they chose to cause. You can admit what you did wrong without accepting blame for another person's actions. Ray had lied during his addiction. He had frightened his wife and daughter, broken promises, and left other people to carry the weight he refused to face. Those facts mattered, but they did not place the packet in the glass. They did not alter Elaine's medical record, leak private files, pressure a witness, or create false evidence. When someone brings up your worst season to excuse what they are doing now, separate the two questions. Ask what you are responsible for, then ask what they are responsible for. Do not let shame answer both. You should also learn from the paper Elaine kept. One printed record, one saved voicemail, one photograph, and one preserved access log did more than shouting ever could. When something serious happens, write down dates. Save original messages. Keep copies in a safe place. Tell a lawyer, doctor, employer, or police officer through the proper channel. Do not edit the evidence to make it stronger. Do not threaten the person involved. Facts become useful when their source and history can be trusted. Silence may feel kind for a few hours. Over time, it can become shelter for the person causing harm. Ray stayed quiet because he feared losing his last family member, and because he believed exposing the truth would dishonor Elaine. In reality, the false record was the insult. Correcting it gave Elaine back her voice. Privacy is valuable, but privacy should not be used to hide conduct that can hurt patients, employees, children, parents, or anyone else who cannot protect themselves. Boundaries are not revenge. Refusing to lie for someone is not cruelty. Letting legal and professional consequences follow documented conduct is not the same as destroying a person. Natalie lost her license, clinic, freedom, and public image because she repeatedly chose concealment over correction. She had chances to stop. She used each one to create another false statement, another altered file, or another person to blame. Her final defeat came when her father stopped rescuing her from the result of those choices. You do not have to stop loving someone before you hold them accountable. Sometimes love becomes honest only after you stop covering the damage. You can say, "I care about you, but I will not sign this." You can say, "My past is real, and your accusation is still false." You can walk away from a conversation designed to make you surrender the truth. Have you ever been asked to keep a family secret that was hurting someone? Did an old mistake of yours get used to silence you? What would have changed if one person had saved the message, kept the document, or simply said, "No, this ends here"? Your experience may help another listener recognize the moment when forgiveness stops being mercy and starts becoming permission.